This is a vision that I received for Immanuel on December 5th and 6th. When I was working as a staff at a rehab for teenagers, we took our kids to this youth group. And it was just at a church some night, and they did all the youth group type things where you play a game or activity, and then you learn about God through something that the pastor says. Anyway, so it was years ago, and this scene was brought to my mind, the specific church. I can't remember what denomination it was, but we were in this room where the youth group took place, and there were all these teenagers in there, and I saw Immanuel walking through there with a violin, and he was playing it. I think it was just a slow song as he walked through the crowd without any type of real recognition or change in any of the scenery at all. And after he walked through the crowd and there was no real response, he threw the violin out. And the next thing he had was actually a baseball glove and a baseball. And he was still in that church at first, and he threw the ball a few times, I think, up in the air. And then it changed to a stadium. And this baseball stadium was, it was at nighttime, actually. And Immanuel was in full baseball gear, like a red hat, baseball, those pinstripe pants or something like that. I don't know. Just a baseball uniform. And I think there was a whole team there. And they were, I think, getting ready for a game, but there was nobody in the audience at all. I don't think there was even another team there. And so, again, I think Immanuel was disappointed and kind of like shook his head. And then he kind of he had a mitt still, and he went up into the stands, and he could see over the edge that there were baseballs being thrown outside the stadium back and forth, kind of. And he caught one of those balls, and he actually threw it up into the heavens, and it was received sort of by the heavens. And then at this point, this huge, giant machine came down and landed right in the middle of the field. I don't know what it was, but I knew that it was able to become larger and larger and larger. It can change its shape. And it was at first, a large machine, but then you can see that there were other pieces that were able to kind of open up and become larger and larger and larger. So it became bigger and bigger and bigger until all of a sudden it shrunk down into the size of into the shape of like a insect or bug. It was sort of like a roach shape, but it was black. Anywho, but it was still very huge, just not in comparison to the size that the machine was in the beginning. And this bug was a machine. And at this point, it dug into the ground, and it was it was leaving the stadium, but it didn't dig underneath the ground where it couldn't be seen. It dug into the ground and still the top part was able to be seen. Anywho, it dug out of the stadium and went out into the world. And again, this disappointed Immanuel. But he very much knew what he had to do, so he grabbed his glove or he had his glove underneath his arm and began to kind of jog behind it, follow the creature out of the stadium and just follow behind it for a while. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Immanuel took out a sword and sliced into the heavens. So it was a different realm. He just stopped in his tracks from following this creature sliced into the heavens, went inside of this different realm, and went straight up to heaven running, just like you could run on the air. And he was running and running, and he was still seen, even though he sliced into the spiritual realm, I could still see him on earth. And then once he started running straight upwards towards the heaven, there was like this cloud barrier. And you can see as he ran through the cloud barrier into the heavens where he couldn't be seen, he was dragging behind one of his teammates. It was a woman. And she was coming with him. And, but he was, having to drag her with him and pull her with him. She wasn't fighting it, but she was just hanging on for dear life. And, he's holding her hand and she's kind of hanging there. She's definitely not running on that way that he was. He was walking up the side of the air, basically, straight into the heavens. And she was kind of like holding on, not able to kind of walk, but holding on. And he pulled her into the heavens, and that was just in the nick of time for what I saw in the sky was just thunder and lightning type, and dry barren land and things like that. So it seemed like it was judgment or something, but that was the end of the vision.